Our first baby came August the 7th, 1945. 1943. Cliff was born in 45. And we were so proud of we finally had a baby. We were married in 41, we wanted a baby so bad, and finally in 43, Carol Ann came along. Your daddy was so happy to be a daddy that he brought me a dozen roses in the hospital. And he was so thrilled, we were both so thrilled to finally have a baby, that we went down to the doctors and paid for the baby before, the first minute we knew we were pregnant, we went down and paid the doctor in the hospital. We were so excited about having a baby. And here we are.
What's her name? How'd you get her name?
Carol Ann. And I had her name Sue Ann. And when my sister and mother and father came to the hospital, and my husband Cliff, they didn't like that name. And I had all the announcements already printed with her name Sue Ann on it. So they decided, well, let's name her. And there was a funny paper that was on a Sunday, and there was the funnies on the bed. My sister pointed to this picture of a boat. She says, Carol Ann, let's call her that. So they all liked that name, Carol Ann. And so that's what we named her, Carol Ann Stratton. Here's a picture taken in the house on Maple Street, my mom and dad's home, with my mother and dad and I, and Cliff and my 3 children. My mother is holding Margaret, and Margaret was born, she was ill she had bronchitis. The first 4 months, my mother and father and Cliff and I took turns, midnight shift, every shift. We each had a shift, and for weeks we all just carried her around on a little pillow, nursing her and trying to get her well. And she just got fine, but her first few months were very touch and go there. Then my father is holding Carol Ann. She was our first baby, as we told you, and she's, our precious little doll. We loved we had a child. We were so thrilled. And then I'm holding Cliff. And here our second child was a little boy in 1945, and how proud we were. We were parents of a little girl and a little boy. And he had this beautiful blonde curly hair, and I would not let your daddy cut it. And he came home one day unexpectedly, and I had put bobby pins in this beautiful blonde curls that Cliff James had. And he said, that's it. I'm not going to have any bobby pins in my son's hair. And right then he took him down to the barber shop and had his beautiful curls cut off.
So this is the first and last time you'll ever see a towhead. I was like Grandma Black. I was a blondie, a towhead. And see my pretty curls? No more. I asked Mom to pick out her favorite picture of her and her husband and her babies, and this is the one that she picked out. And this one you should all recognize, because see the picture in the back? It still hangs above the fireplace. This is 314 Campbell, and so this was probably before Dad added on the half of our front room, though. Used to be a porch out there, and this is a picture of Mom and Dad, and notice that my hair is short over on the left, and it's now brown, and it's now even shorter. In fact, it's almost gone. And not really, but I am losing it. And there's little Megs, the little girl right in the middle. What a fireball she always was. And there's Carol Ann, right next to Mom. And notice how they're holding their stuffed animals. I remember we used to have the 3 of us used to play right out front out here on the sidewalk. We used to have a great big hill. We'd climb up on the hill, and we'd jump down on the sandy part of the hill. And we pretended we were jumping out of airplanes, and we used to get these big old cardboard boxes. And we'd lay down in the cardboard boxes, and we'd roll down the hill in these cardboard boxes. Oh, what fun the 3 of us had. And then when I was really little, all 3 of us, I remember we used to have a little red wagon. And see those dolls, the stuffed animals that the girls were carrying, Megs and Carol Ann? We used to put those in this little red wagon and we would walk up and down the street pretending that we were taking them to church or to the store or whatever. Me and my sisters had a great life. It was really a lot of fun being raised at 314 Campbell in Winslow, Arizona. And then here we are, Mom and Dad, with Meg's on the right, Caroline right behind with the beautiful smile. What a beautiful smile Caroline always had. Just always was happy. She was the happiest person in our family. And there's Dad and Mom, and there's me with the short hair over on the left. I always had short hair after Dad cut my hair that first time when I was a couple of years old. And then something tremendous happened to our family. Look down at the bottom. Who is sitting on Dad's lap? There's 9 years between Meg's and the little boy sitting on Dad's lap. In that time, Mom had 2 miscarriages. And I remember when Mom came home and she told us that she was pregnant. And I remember that I was so excited that I went outside to play right across the street here with some of my friends. And I remember telling them that my mama was going to have a baby. She'd had 2 miscarriages in that 9 years, and looked like this one was going to make it. And so she told us after she was well pregnant. And I remember telling my little friends, and one of the neighbor ladies was out putting the laundry out on the line when I told a little friend, and she heard about it. And Mom was looking out the kitchen window and saw. And so I remember when I came back in the house, she said, "Now you don't tell people I'm pregnant." She said, "You don't tell people you're pregnant. That's something you just don't do." And so she was very pregnant. And I remember I was playing a basketball game. When Dad took her to the hospital, I was playing a basketball game over here at, I think it was Lincoln School, I guess. And I remember Dad came in without Mom and said, "You just need to know that I'm taking your mom to the hospital. So after you get through with the basketball game, make sure you have somebody take you home." And I thought, I'm not going to be playing this basketball game. I want to go with my mama to the hospital. I'm not going to stay here. And Dad said, "No." He said, "There's nothing you can do. Mama has to have this baby all by herself." He said, "They won't even let me around." So he said, "Cliff, you just stay here and play your basketball game, and when you get done, you go home, and I'll meet you at home later." And so I remember the rest of that basketball game as I was playing. It's still vivid in my mind. I remember I couldn't shoot, I couldn't dribble, I couldn't do anything except think that my mother was in the hospital having a baby, and this baby's name was Chuck, named Charles Elmer Stratton.
From his 2 grandpas.
From his 2 grandpas. Dad's father is named Charles. He was a bishop for 13 years there in Hinckley, Utah, and he was named after one of his pioneer ancestors, Charles Byrd, who was a bodyguard to the prophet Joseph Smith, and he was Joseph's bodyguard the day before Joseph and Hiram were martyred. And when Charles Byrd came back, rode his horse from Carthage back to Nauvoo, the way that his family knew that the prophet Joseph had been martyred was he got off his horse. If you've ever been to Nauvoo, and you've been to the Charles Byrd, the Browning House it's called now, you can look up on the hillside right up there just past the temple. And Charles Byrd rode up, and he got off his horse, and he knelt down as if, took his hat off as if to pray. And that is how the family knew that the prophet Joseph had been killed. And then he went on into town with some others to give the news to the church officials that the prophet Joseph had been killed. So that's where the name Charles originated from, was the prophet, one of the prophet Joseph's bodyguard, and that's where Charles Stratton got his name, who was my dad's my dad's father, and then that's where Charles Elmer got his name, Charles, and that's why I have a son named Charles. I have a son named Charles Romney Stratton. So Charles is a good old family name all the way back to the time of the prophet Joseph Smith. And there he is. That's our Chucky. We used to call him Chucky until he got big enough to whoop us, and then we started calling him Chuck. And now he's just Uncle Chuck. And now Chuck joins our family.
Beautifully built.
That last picture that showed Uncle Chuck as a member of our family was in 1959. And Mom would like to have us see this picture now This is a big family reunion we had in 1979 in Winslow. This is in our backyard here at 314 Campbell. You can see Grandpa's garden. You can't, but the Grandpa's garden is just right behind us right there. And rather than try to name this whole group of Wahoops, since you all know who you are, I'll just let you take a look at it, and you can pick out each of you. You're all in there. Everyone that was born before 1979 is in this picture. And so you pick out your picture and which one is you. Did you find yourself? Aren't you good looking? You good looking Stratton, you. Okay, we have all written our life histories, and we all have our own pictures. And I know I've got lots of pictures about me, and I'm sure Carol Ann and Meg and Chuck do about themselves too. And so Mama says that it's probably best that we just show the pictures of each of her babies as adults. And so here's Carol Ann as an adult. Although she'll always be duty land to me, she was always my big sister. She taught me how to dance, and she introduced me to boys in high school, and my girls in high school, and some boys that I could hang around with as friends, and that's my duty land. And here's Clifford James, and even though Marcia thinks I'm awful good looking, my dad used to say that he kept all of his good looks. So this is me with my mama. And here's Meg's. I remember, see how fancy her hairdo is? She has always dressed so nice with her fancy hairdo. I remember when I left for my mission in Wales, she was in the back bathroom with the three-way mirror doing her hair. And she got up and gave me a big hug as Mom and Dad were going to take me down to Phoenix, down to the airport. And she gave me a great big hug, and then she sat down to do her hair. And I remembered that I thought that how appropriate that was, that my pretty sister would give me a big hug while she was doing her hair, because she always dressed and looked meticulously beautiful. But when Dad told me that he kept all of his good looks, he must have told the truth, because when Chuck came along, he gave all of his good looks to Chuck. This is the good-looking kid of our family. This is Charles Elmer with his mama. I asked Mom to go through all of her pictures and get the picture that she loves the most about her mature children. And this is the one she picked. Here's Mom and Dad and her mature children. Stratton. And she asked me to do this in the form of a little life sketch or life history that the four of us kids wrote about our dad. It says, I am honored this day to pay tribute. Who read this?
Joe Hunt.
Joe Hunt read this. I am honored to pay tribute to this long-standing friend, Clifford Stratton. We worked together on the railroad, hunted and fished together, and had many pleasant relationships. Charles Stratton was born to Charles Abel Stratton and Emma Mariah Isom into a family of 9 children, 6 boys and 3 girls, he being next to the youngest. His Mormon pioneer ancestors suffered the persecution of the Missouri Mobocrats, helped construct the Nauvoo Temple, and were staunch members of the LDS Church. Although a freak accident and the loss of their first child caused Charles and Emma to become inactive in the church for a time, they maintained high principles and standards in the home and were sure the children always attended all their meetings. The family moved to Hinckley, Utah, where they farmed, acquiring 120 acres of land. It was here that Cliff was born on August the 31st, 1914. As with many farm families, the children were taught to do many varied and often physically demanding chores which caused them to put in many long hours each day. There was no modern equipment such as tractors and so forth. They used horses to pull the farm equipment and learned the importance of caring for their tools and animals. This training served Cliff well throughout his life, and he passed this valuable trait on to his children. Even now you could go into his workbench and find all of his equipment in perfect working condition. Of course, life at home was not all work. There were many fun things as well. As with all big families, there were differences of opinions, but there was also much love and companionship. All the brothers had pet names such as Spit and Rock and Clate. When you asked Cliff what his brothers called him, he would never tell. In 1919, a terrible flu epidemic swept the nation, killing hundreds of people in the Hinckley, Utah area. The Stratton family did not escape the tragedy. The 3 oldest children died, and only the father was well enough to attend the simple funeral. Cliff remembered looking out the window with his mother and sister as the funeral carriages rolled by. The memory of that awful day was indelibly engraved in the minds of the children forever. This crisis was the turning point for Cliff's parents. They became active members of the Mormon Church again, and only a short time later, Charles became bishop of the Hinckley ward. He served as bishop for 13.5 years, often leaving his sons to do the work at the farm while he attended to the needs of the church members. This staunch commitment to serve the Lord in his church was a strong factor in shaping Cliff's desire to serve. He and his wife Pat served as missionaries on a full-time mission for 18 months in Montana. Just weeks after his return, at the age of 65, he was called to serve as bishop of the Winslow 3rd Ward. After a regular term as bishop and wife, they were then called on a 2-year mission to serve in the Arizona Temple. With his oldest son, Clifford James, having served as bishop, the Stratton family has the remarkable record of having 5 generations of bishops going back to the time of the prophet Joseph Smith. Cliff has referred to the Great Depression days many times, telling how the little community of Hinckley survived through the ingenuity of his father, who was mayor and bishop and chairman of the water board at Hinckley. Every family was encouraged to have a garden and to plant more than their family needed, so there would be enough for the widows and the elderly. There was plenty of food, but little money, so the people traded commodities to round out their needs. Cliff said, "The Strattons were the fattest poor people in town." It was in 1930, during the heart of the Depression, that he graduated from high school. He had saved his hard-earned money for college with the hopes of becoming a physician. Just weeks before he was to pay his tuition, the bank holding his money folded. All of his money for school was gone. He had to start out all over again, using his brain and his brawn. Cliff was an outstanding student. He was valedictorian of his high school graduating class, and he graduated with honors from Arizona State Teachers College, now Northern Arizona University, at Flagstaff as a business major. He completely put himself through school, often working 3 jobs and playing college football and basketball on athletic scholarships. Because he knew the worth of hard work and a good education, he and Pat helped each of their 4 children gain college educations. He was especially pleased when his oldest son was able to become the doctor that he was never able to become financially. Cliff's first teaching job was at Round Valley High School in Springerville. He taught business courses, typing and bookkeeping, and served as the athletic coach. The tough group of boys at first tested the mettle of their green coach. They soon learned that Coach Stratton had a good sense of humor, but expected honesty, hard work, and good sportsmanship from his team. There are many interesting stories of how he proved to the big football players that he was tougher and smarter than they were. One story goes like this. A student came into Cliff's typing class the morning after a big game, complaining about being unable to type that day or to do his homework the night before because he hurt his finger in the game. He said, "Coach, I hurt my hand and I can't bend my finger any further than this. holding his forefinger straight up. "I can't type today." Coach Stratton asked, "How far could you bend it before you hurt it?" "Oh, clear down to here." And he bent his finger all the way down. He had a few physical bouts with the boys, including tossing one out of the classroom window to make good on a threat he had made if the student didn't settle down. He gained their respect and over the years their friendship. Because of his good reputation with young people, Winslow's school executives recruited him to teach at Winslow High School. He taught school and worked summers on the railroad. In 1941, he went to railroading full-time. He hired out as a brakeman, then was promoted to conductor, and worked for 40 years before retiring. He served on the Rules Committee, helping to rewrite the rules book for the Santa Fe Railroad. When he was teaching at Winslow High School, he met his lifelong sweetheart, Patricia Black. She was attending college in Tucson and was home earning money to go back for another semester. They met at a dance, and when he asked her for a dance, she told him she might be able to squeeze him in later in the evening, but her dance card was full. Although she gave him a run for his money, they were married 9 months later on July 28, 1941. They would always chuckle when they would pass the high school student on the street, and they would say, "Hi, Pat." "Hello, Mr. Stratton." As the saying goes, you can take the boy off the farm, but you can't take the farm out of the boy. And so it was with Cliff as he ventured to farm in Deer Valley for 1.5 years with his father-in-law and brother-in-law as partners. However, the water table kept dropping, so they sold the farm and Cliff returned to the railroad. Cliff and Pat bought a home at 314 Campbell, in which they raised their 4 children, Carol Ann, Clifford James, Margaret, and Charles. It is still their residence after more than 50 years. The children have fond memories of their home life and speak with admiration and love for their parents. Some of the activities they mentioned are their family days of fun in fishing, hunting, and camping. Even yet they have their family reunions at Greer at the Benny Creek Forest Camp. In his later years, Cliff enjoyed golfing with special friends, telling unbelievable fishing stories, and playing canasta with his wife and another group of very special couples. Cliff supported his sons and daughters in their sports activities. He was so fond of sports and camping himself that he coached Little League teams for 13 years, winning and receiving many trophies, and he was also the scoutmaster for many years. The children relate many incidents where they deserved punishment, but it was always done without anger, and their father always helped them to understand the reason for it. One time Pat was asked how they reared such fine children, and she quietly said they had a good father. He was a great example for his children in showing love and respect for their mother. One incident Margaret related was the time when she was frustrated with her mother, as only a teenager can be, and she said to her mother, "Oh, Mother, I hate you." Her father was working outside and heard the comment through the window and came inside. He took her aside and pointed his finger at her and said, "That is your mother, and she loves you. I am blessed to have her as my wife eternally. Don't ever speak to my sweetheart that way again." His love for their mother was so strong that Margaret apologized and never spoke disrespectfully to her father's sweetheart again. His family and friends will always remember him for his honesty, quiet strength of character, willingness to help anyone he saw that needed help, sense of humor, deliberate decision-making, and patience. He was very methodical in his work and record-keeping. He never yelled at his wife or children, yet earned their respect, and they desired to do their very best for him. Some of his favorite sayings were, "If you're going to do something, do it well and finish the job." Around our house there are 2 kinds of people, the quick and the hungry. There is nothing I hate worse than a liar or a cheat. When someone ate dinner with them, he would tell them, "We have only one rule at this table. It's called the boarding house reach rule. You can eat anything on the table you can reach, but you have to keep 1 foot on the floor. Cliff and Pat have 4 children, 27 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren so far. This was written in 1996, I guess, huh? It can be said of Cliff that what you could see on the outside in his word and deed could also be seen on the inside in his heart and mind. He is a loving husband and father, a respected member of the community, a good and loyal friend, a man who knew well his Father in heaven and lived his life accordingly. He is a fine example for all of us.
Very well done, son.
And this is Mama's favorite picture of her with her husband. Here they are with their fifth-wheeler at the Benny Creek Campground in Greer, enjoying a summer vacation. Mom said that I could go through all of her pictures and pick out the picture that I remembered the most about our family, that I thought represented us the most. And this picture is a very small picture. It's only about 3 or 4 inches on each side, so it's probably not very good. I've zoomed in as much as I can, but just take a look at our family. See Dad? He was a conductor on the railroad, and see Mom. See what a beautiful couple they are and how vibrant they look. Our parents were always on the go, hunting and fishing and sports and everything. I remember one time I was on the Phillies playing against Dad. He was the coach of the Tigers, and my dad didn't know who to root for, his team or my team, to see who would win in Little League. There's Carol Ann. That's the Carol Ann that I remember in the 50s. See her 50s hairdo, all poofed up in bouffant style, and her glasses are 50s style glasses. And Carol Ann, she was about a senior in high school at the time this picture was taken. And this is when she used to take care of her little brother. Then when I moved to Flagstaff, Carol Ann was already at Flagstaff, and so she took care of me my first year or two in college also, when I went to Northern Arizona University. Carol Ann was kind of the pioneer in our family. She led the way for everything. And then there's Chucky down there at the bottom, and you probably can't see this, but I remember Chucky. I used to tease him because his big front teeth came in as adult teeth long before his head grew to be adult size. And so I used to always tease my little brother about following me around and always tagging along, and oh, how I loved it. Oh, how I loved it. That's my little brother Chucky. And then there's Megs. Look at that perfect smile, the perfect hairdo, the perfect dress. She was always the example of Grandma Black in our family. She always was the high society girl, dressed just right and looked just right and said just the right things to just the right people in just the right way. Would never be offensive. The years we spent in seminary and out on that dance floor doing rock and roll, and the dates we had right here at the house. We used to go down to Dairy Queen, and we'd get a bucket of ice cream and 3 or 4 toppings and bring a whole bunch of kids here to the house, and we wore out one carpet in this front room here at 314 Campbell. Just flat out danced it to death. We do a lot of dancing and a lot of Monopoly and game playing together. And then there I am up there in the top left. That's me a couple of years before, about a year or 2 before I went to college and on my mission. Chuck went to Spain on his mission, and Mom and Dad went to Montana on their full-time mission, as we just said, and I went to Wales and England on my mission. And Meg's married Gerald. He went to South America, because on his way back he went by Chichen Itza and Copan and saw some of those places. And Carol Ann married Bob, and he went on his mission to Central England. So everybody in there is connected somehow to missionary work for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This is Mom and Dad at their 25th wedding anniversary. Megs and Carol went all out, and Megs made that cake you see right there next to that dozen red roses. That was all done in silver. And that tree behind them, Megs and Carol Ann put silver dollars all over that tree, and that was the gift that we gave them as their children on their 25th wedding anniversary. And so this is Mom and Dad on their 25th wedding anniversary.
Your dad, isn't it?
And this is Mom and Dad at their 50th wedding anniversary. We had our family reunion at Provo Canyon. And here they are cutting their 50th wedding anniversary cake, and Dad's feeding Mom some cake, and then we have some of the pictures where she's feeding him. It's a great picture of Dad. Look how happy he is. What a great dad.
Here's a picture of Cliff standing between our living room and dining room in 314 Campbell. We have some wonderful memories of our children in this home. Every one of them were raised here. I remember after eating dinner, we'd coax them to please eat a little bit more. You'll grow tall. Then they'd take another bite and lie down here on the floor and say, "Did I grow more, Mom? Did I grow more, Daddy? I ate a bite. Have I grown any more?" And we used to have, of course, this was many days before television, and we had a radio, and we'd lay on the floor in the living room and listen to the stories on the radio.
Yeah, there was one called the Invisible Man, and we used to just sit there and it would just scare us to death. I remember going to bed so scared because of the Invisible Man. And Dad leaning right there on the little partition between the two rooms. When Dad added on the front room, he built that partition right there that he's leaning on, and Mom will tell us why it is the height it is.
Well, the kids decided that this was the height because they didn't want any of their friends to come and see us all eating dinner at the table, and if it was just this certain height, then nobody could see us. And right above Cliff's head, you might be able to see a little hook. And that's where our children had their swing. From the time they were babies till they were old enough not to have a swing, they had to swing on this big hook.
Meg, to see that carpet down there? That's the carpet that we wore out. Remember that carpet? We just about wore that carpet out with all of our dancing, all of our partying in high school.
Your daddy's had each one of you on his back playing there on the living room.
Yep, and there's the saw. We just barely got through building this part of the house. Here's Dad the railroader sitting up on top of the caboose. We've all been inside the caboose before. Dad used to sit there and watch as the train would go around each turn to look for hot boxes. And Dad became an excellent domino player. In fact, he even bought a special ivory set. And I'll tell you, playing Dad in anything that was a mental game, it was brutal because he was very competitive and very intelligent. And I remember even when I was home from my mission, I remember playing dominoes with Dad, and he knew exactly every domino I had by the ones he had. It was just an incredible game to him. He loved mental challenges. That's why he was so good on the rules committee, on the railroad, on the Santa Fe for so many years. He used to go to Los Angeles and take classes and then teach classes to rules people from all over from Chicago all the way to L.A. Everywhere that the Santa Fe Railroad went. And this is Dad the conductor. I have that conductor's hat, and no, nobody else can have it. Dad gave it to me. And this is Dad the conductor. He only was a conductor for a while on passenger. He didn't. He liked working with the guys out on the road, working freight. But this is Dad the conductor. And this is our house at 314 Campbell Avenue. And that bike right there ought to make Megs a little bit homesick because that was Margaret's bike. I remember one time I was chasing after her and she was going so fast I couldn't run and catch up with her. And so I picked up a rock and threw it at her. And Dad saw, and boy, even though I missed, I was a terrible shot. When I got home, man, that was one of the few times in my life that I got spanked. I got spanked because of that bike right there. And you don't know if you can see it up at the dog over in the bottom right-hand corner. Mama said that that's Jingo. Remember we talked about Jingo and that dog that we used to climb on as kids and how he'd haul us around like he was a horse? That's Jingo. I didn't know we had a picture of him. And that's the front of the house. That whole front of the house, Dad remodeled all of that. That's all rock work and construction that Dad did. And then in the back, you can't see it, but that's where the girls had their bedroom, and I had my bedroom and a bathroom that Dad added on. Behind that was a carport that Dad built. And so my dad was, he built that house. He built more on that house than there was to begin with. This is our house at 314 Campbell. Brings back lots of memories, doesn't it, Megs and Carol Ann and Chuck? Lots of memories. There's a couple of pictures here of Dad that I would be negligent if I didn't show. This is Dad. This is Dad with one of our other dogs. This dog's name was Speckles. Remember him, kids? That's Speckles. Dad and Mom used to love to hunt and fish, especially Dad. And this is a Greer one year, as you girl cousins will recognize. Notice that even though those girls, see the girls holding the fish right there, Carrie and Marlene and Marlisha and Margot, they got in Dad's green boat, and we had Dad's little electric motor on the back, and I thought they were going to go out there and go fishing. And they did put a couple of poles in the water, and then they started taking off their sweaters and their pants, and they all had swimsuits on and shorts and tank tops, and they just floated around. It's the lake right next to River Reservoir there at Greer, and they just floated around for about 2 or 3 hours just catching rays. And in spite of not trying to catch any fish, they still caught some fish, because it was in Grandpa's blood. He taught them how to catch fish, and they couldn't help but catch a few fish. So that was that day up at Greer. Dad's granddaughters out sunbathing and catching fish. Dad harvested many, many deer over the years. They used to be allowed 7 deer each a year in Utah, and so the family ate an awful lot of venison. Because you wouldn't eat one of your own cows. That was like eating money. Cattle were worth a lot of money, and so they ate a lot of venison. And I showed you this picture because this is the only deer I ever know that Dad ever shot with a muzzle loader. He'd come up to visit us. We went out fishing in the morning out at Frenchman, and because Dad was with us, we limited out within just a couple hours. We came back and he was acting bored. And I had a muzzleloader tag, and so I said, Dad, you want to go up on Peavine and do some deer hunting? He said, yes. And so we hopped in the Jeep and we went up and went up on Peavine, and Dad harvested that nice deer with that muzzleloader that I'm holding right there in my hand. Dad used to love it outdoors. He felt confined indoors sometimes. Even on his mission, I've got pictures of him going fishing on his mission. And when he and Mom went to Montana, I was never allowed to go fish. Chuck, were you allowed to go fishing on your mission? I wasn't allowed to go fishing on my mission. But my dad, he went fishing on his full-time mission. Hunting and fishing were his life. Oh man, I've seen him harvest elk and antelope and deer and turkeys and doves and quail. Everything that there is in Arizona, my dad has hunted it, and we've eaten it. Here's Dad at home in the TV room in his favorite chair. Mom and Dad at our family home evening on the Provo River, where we honor them at their 50th wedding anniversary. Dad loved his garden. There he is, harvesting the squash and the turnips and the beets. I remember being out in the garden, and he would take a turnip out of the ground and a beet, and he'd rub it off on his shirt and take out a penknife and cut a big hunk of each and put it in his mouth. And so one day I said, Dad, I want to do that. So he cut me a big hunk of turnip and beet, and I put it in my mouth. Any of you that have ever eaten fresh turnips and fresh beets straight out of the ground, you know that that was a little bit spicy and sour, but Dad used to love it. The hotter and the spicier and the sour, the better. Dad had a great sense of humor. He loved to laugh. And boy, could he laugh when his funny bone got tickled. Here's Dad in a familiar pose, just laughing to his heart's content. Now a little montage of Mom. This is the only picture we have of Mom diving off the diving board at Clear Creek. This is where she learned how to dive. That's Mom up there. That's Patsy Black diving right there with her legs in the scissor kick in the middle of the air. And she got to be such a great diver. Not only did she set all the records in high school and in college, but also she did a lot of precision swimming down at the university, where all the women, they'd all do the precision swimming. And she did some exhibition diving when she was at the University of Arizona and also in high school. Just all-around champion swimmer and diver. And that's Mom. That's your grandma in the middle of the air kicking her feet when she was about 17 years old out at Clear Creek. Here she is again, dressed in a casual outfit at college. And here Mom is, pregnant with one of us kids. She got pretty big, didn't she? All you sister ladies out there that have been pregnant knows just how she feels right now. That's our mama. Here she is coming out of the front door of the Arizona Temple. Just been through an endowment session for her ancestors.